Thank you, Orla, for coming on. I know this is a very sensitive topic. I know that you feel passionately about sharing your story in a bid to help others. You said before you've watched podcasts and they
Mhm.
helped you plenty, and so that's why you're here today. So thank you.
No problem.
I was looking up some statistics, and as a mother of five, I was actually quite shocked to find out that up to 1 in 5 women will experience a mental health problem during pregnancy
Mhm.
or in the year after birth, including postnatal depression.
Mhm.
That's quite a high statistic. It's
Mm,
quite shocking.
yeah, yeah.
What do you think of that?
It doesn't surprise me, to be honest, and I suppose that's because of my background.
Tell us a little bit about your background.
So I've been a psychiatric nurse from 2009, working in acute mental health inpatients and then acute mental health in the community. So perinatal women um, would form part well, I wouldn't say most, but maybe a good part of the people we look after. Um, yeah, either in pregnancy or up to a year, and sometimes even just beyond that cusp of a year, 14, 15 months, quite unwell.
And
From
how
a
long
health
had
point of
you
view.
been working in that area before you became pregnant or had your first child?
Oh, I was working in the acute inpatient unit about 2 years whenever I was pregnant with my first.
So you would have thought of all the people, you would have been someone who would have been able to pick that up if that had happened to yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I suppose I had this false sense of security that I'm a mental health nurse. This isn't going to happen to me
Yeah.
because I don't know why, but you just sort of feel immune, and there's not one of us immune. Um, and I thought, yeah, I will see this coming a mile off, and I am so in tune with myself that it would be obvious to me that if something wasn't right, I would know.
And how many children do you have?
I have 3 girls.
3 girls.
Yeah.
How old are they?
Kiva's 14, Kayla's 12, and Aaron's 10. I know.
So what are the age gaps then between
Uh, Kiva was
the girls?
20 months when Kayla was born,
Mm-hmm.
and Kayla was 2 when Aaron was born. So altogether, there's 3 under 3. Kiva was almost 4 when Aaron was
That's a
born.
lot.
Yeah, there were steps of stairs. They got a
I
lot of
have
attention.
I have 2 girls with 17 months between them, and I find that really tough. So I don't know how you did that.
Yeah, it was. I would say the first from having the first one. The clarity came after about 6 years. She was about 6 when I started to realize that what was happening.
Oh my gosh. Um. So talk to me about your first experience of postnatal depression. Was it with all of your children? One, just two?
Um, the first child, Kiva, when she was born, I was grand. Everything was good. Felt really well and went back to work, and everything went back to work when she was about 6 months, and went on to full time nights. And was doing nights for a few months or whatever. Um, and I thought I was okay. Um, I was trying to do my best and trying to get as much sleep as I could, which isn't
You probably just
possible.
thought that's the way it is.
Yeah,
It's
I
how it's
mean,
supposed to be.
yeah,
Yeah.
because I suppose you're always told children aren't going to be great sleepers. You're not going to get an awful lot of sleep. So I just thought this was normal. Um, and then my mum and my sister had a conversation with me and were like,
Both
"You're
together.
you're not okay. Yeah, you're
And
not
at what
okay."
stage was this? How old was your first child?
I would say she was maybe about 7 months, 8 months.
So you weren't back to work long.
No, no, no. Only a matter of weeks.
And what did they say in that conversation with you?
They were just kind of like, you're worrying me. You're worrying us that you're just not yourself. Um, I became a bit more withdrawn, a bit more isolated. I would have always been the one to call round to theirs, and visited people, and I just couldn't be bothered anymore, and I was getting a bit sort of agitated and a wee bit.
And I suppose your first child being 7 months, starting to play a little bit more and kind of wanting a bit more interaction.
Mhm.
Did you, knowing now after having other children, did you notice anything different about how you were bonding maybe?
Initially, our bond was great, but then when she needed more from me,
And you were
wanting to play,
exhausted.
I wanting to play with me, and I was just thinking, is she for real? I'm exhausted. I'm trying to take 5 minutes peace on the sofa, and she's handing me blocks. It just
Something so simple.
something so simple, and I couldn't do it.
When you were feeling that way, were you aware or did you feel guilty and not want to say to anyone else that that's how you were feeling, or was it just very matter of fact
I suppose
for you?
I don't ever remember having a conversation with my ones, to say this is how I'm feeling, but I would imagine it has come across because they know me so well and we are a very close family, and they probably got the vibe that I couldn't be bothered anymore.
That must have been hard for them to see, and also
Mhm.
they would have. I'm trying to put myself in their position. They would have seen that you were incredibly vulnerable and not wanting to upset you
Mhm.
even more. So
Mhm.
that must have been a very hard conversation for them to have with you. What
Yeah.
happened off the back of that? Did you go and speak to anybody?
Yeah, so I've always been the strong one in the family. I was always the one that people came to because I was the nurse. It was my job to look after them all, and that was something that was ingrained in me. So when they felt it was me that needed help, I think they struggled with that. Um, it was very difficult for me to accept what they were saying, but I trust them, and I thought, right, I'm going to make an appointment with a GP, and did, and
How did
he's
that go?
I basically went to the GP and said I just feel a bit meh, feel a bit flat, feel a bit, what's the point, unmotivated, frustrated, and a bit cranky and a bit cross, which isn't really like me. Um, and I was handed basically a prescription for an antidepressant.
And that was that.
That was that.
No, I'm not actually sure what the process should be, but is there no offering of counseling, a specialist, a midwife,
At that
or
point,
health
because
visitor?
well, that, not really. At that point, it was a prescription, and
And did you took the
I
prescription?
yeah,
I
yeah.
suppose you're just desperate for
I
help
was I It took me a long time to really accept that I needed it. So I
because
waited
we
a
see it
couple of
as a
days,
sign of weakness.
absolutely, and um, but then I did start it, and within a week I was feeling a bit better. So kept taking that, and then
And did you take time off work?
no,
Oh, why not? Can I ask?
I suppose that's me admitting defeat.
Feeling like a failure.
Absolutely. Um, I couldn't have. I couldn't.
So you were experiencing, did you get a diagnosis from your GP of postnatal depression?
No, that
How,
wasn't until the second baby.
so how long did that last with your first baby feeling like that, and how long were you on the medication, and what was the process for trying to, you know, wean you off if that's what happened?
It was very much just take these tablets and all the best.
Were you reviewed
No,
periodically? Are you serious?
it wasn't reviewed. No, I was just ordered a repeat prescription. Yeah.
They never asked to see you again?
No,
Did they ask you, um, I know you're a psychiatric nurse, so you'll not find these kind of questions too invasive,
no.
I'm hoping, but did they ask you questions of, did you have feelings of, wanting to self-harm, end your life,
I
harm
think
your
they,
baby?
yeah,
I mean, I've never experienced postnatal depression, thankfully,
yeah.
but I can imagine the questions that would be asked
I think
in that
they asked
situation.
that at the initial appointment.
Just once, one
Yeah.
appointment.
And then I just kept ordering, and I probably had maybe a phone call just to say, look, I'm really feeling the benefit of these. I'm just going to continue with them.
What about the health visitor? Was there any contact from a health
No,
visitor?
no.
Surely, is that not standard practice?
You would think so, but I'm not. I think at that time there was like changeovers with health visitors and all that, and it was a bit inconsistent. But
And how were you coping then from
I was doing
7
okay.
months on the medication?
I was doing okay, and then um, when Kiva was a year old, I discovered I was pregnant with my second. So
You were still on your medication?
I came off it then myself. Didn't contact the GP. Just told the GP, like, I'm expecting and stop, and said I'm gonna have.
Did they ask for you to come in and have a wee review appointment to talk you through it? No?
No,
Oh, Orla,
no, no.
as a nurse, we
Yeah,
both know just how bad that is.
yeah, yeah. Um, in saying that, I coped well, and I knew how to reach out to them if I needed anything, and
But
thankfully
that's
everything was fine.
not the case for many women.
Yeah. But the second, after I delivered the second baby, when I had Kayla, um, that's when my experience of postnatal depression really took over my life for the best part of a year.
Orla, I'm sorry to hear that. Are you okay to talk about?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
How old was Kayla before you started to experience? Were you aware of it yourself this time, or did family have to
I wasn't
step
really
in?
initially aware. Kayla was a very snuffly baby, and had an awful cough. And when she was 10 days old, she was in the out of hours because of this cough and things. And then I think maybe when she was 2 weeks, I took her to the GP and was like, "Look, I'm really worried about her. Something's going to happen to her. She's not well, and I'm supposed to be her mother. I'm supposed to be looking after her, and people are looking at me as if to say, "S- help that baby. This is yours. You're supposed to be looking after this baby." And that's what I thought people were doing. The people were going, you know, why is that mother not looking after her baby? So I got quite worried and anxious. It's just anxious and self conscious. That people were judging my parenting. And at that, the GP was like, "Orla, this isn't right. Um, you need a prescription for an antidepressant." And my first thought was, "Oh my God, not again." And I took the antidepressant and took it for a few months, and I wasn't too bad. Um, but it just wasn't doing enough. Um, I was maybe sitting at about a, you know, 3 or 4 out of 10 on my mood,
With two
with
young children
two very small children.
on maternity? At this point,
Yeah.
you weren't working,
Yeah, I wasn't working. I was off.
although that might have a wee break might
Yeah.
have
I
helped
Yeah,
somehow.
absolutely. But my mood was significantly bad with the second one. Um,
Were you at home a lot on your own with the two? Hubby at work?
hubby was at
Did you
work.
have
He
much
took
support?
he took 4 weeks off. The usual 2 weeks paternity, 2 weeks annual leave, and helped me out as best he could. My mum and my sister were around near enough every day in those early weeks
You're
and
very
things.
lucky to have that.
Honestly, they are my lifeline. My mum and my sister and my husband could not or would not be here without them. Um,
On that point, it is a bit ridiculous that men only get 2 weeks paternity leave to
so
support. It's not about so much them bonding with um their baby, which is very much needed. It's
absolutely.
still very important, but it's about supporting a new mum,
Mm-hmm.
especially when there's other children in the home that
Yeah,
need taken care of.
it wasn't enough. I mean, he done more than I would have even asked.
Yeah,
He
but
was
his
very
hands were
great,
tied.
but his hands were tied. He had to go back to work, and I can remember that panic on the morning of him going for his first day of work, and I was just crying, going like, "Please don't leave me. You can't leave me."
You're
I'm
scared.
so anxious, because to me something was going to happen, and I didn't know what was going to happen. Um, but the thing that really worried me was that mundaneness of, you get up in the morning, you feed your children, you dress them, you try and do what you can around the house, and then it's just Groundhog Day, and it was just always the same, doing washing. And I can remember when I did start going to the GP about my mood and reviewing medications because I really wasn't feeling great. And The GP was brilliant at that time and was seeing me every week, every Tuesday.
That's more like it.
Yeah, really reviewing me quite well. And on a Sunday afternoon, I can remember just emptying clothes out of the tumble dryer and thinking in my own head, and this is so rational to me. If I was beamed up by aliens, right, nobody would miss me. They would just have to do a bit more washing. My husband knows what time the kids get up in the morning. He knows when they need fed. He knows what they like. He knows when they need changed. And he knows that if he buys clothes that are all on one hanger, like an outfit, that my children will be dressed in nice clothes. And if all else fails, my mummy and my sister's always there. So my children are going to be well looked after and they're going to be dressed nicely.
That's what you were thinking.
It was there. It was clear as day to me. And then I thought, right, well, obviously, I'm not going to get beamed up by aliens, but if I got the next train to Dublin, I could get on to the next flight and I could be out of here and nobody would even notice. Nobody would notice me missing.
That's heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So at that point, I can just remember lying in the middle of the kitchen floor, clothes everywhere. I'm thinking, I don't know what I'm going to do. But at the same time, I knew it wasn't rational and I knew it couldn't be an option. I knew this wasn't right. It's not a proper way to be thinking. So I contacted mummy and she came down and she was like, right, I'm going to phone out of hours. You're not well. And I thought, no, please, 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 because I work in the team that does the out of hours service, or I knew the team very well, and had worked with them. I was like, no, please don't, because as much as they're fabulous, I don't think I want to go to that extent yet. So if it wasn't for my GP promising me every Tuesday at 2 o'clock an appointment, I would have had to go to out of hours and it would have started a whole ball rolling that I really wouldn't have wanted. And I know myself, I would have been
You
admitted
would have been admitted.
and had visions of my admission. I could see in my head, you know, lying because I knew the acute ward, lying in the acute ward and them turning the lights on every 15 minutes to check you were breathing and me having to wave to say, yes, I'm still awake, yes, I'm still awake, because I wasn't sleeping, and I had visions of the nurse who I knew, who had worked nights with, doing the 15-minute checks and me waving at her to say, yeah, I'm still awake. And that's what stopped me from allowing her to phone the out of hours. Because I didn't want that.
And so where did you go from there? I mean, how did you stay the same? Did you have more episodes of feeling that lost and lonely and scared and powerless? Or did it start to get better because that happened and then you started to rely on family support
Think,
more, asking for help,
yeah,
seeing
so
your doctor for check-ins?
I think at that point, my family knew the extent then of how bad it was. So there was a lot more support, they were around near enough constantly and constantly checking on me and, you know, um, doing wee small things, right, come on, we're going out today and we're nipping out to this, that and the other. And my husband then took time off work, and we organised day trips. And I can remember vividly going to the aquarium and just still feeling empty and as if I was just going through the motions, and him driving home with, me and the two kids in the car, and him listening to a radio station that was really, really, really funny. Um, and him laughing and me thinking, how dare you? How dare you? How can you feel
Joy,
joy and
happiness.
yeah, how is that funny when I'm sitting here and I just feel frozen? and
Would you say
the whole world
just
was just
existing?
existing. Yeah,
I've felt that not in the same sense, but I would describe it as I'm just existing.
yeah, and I couldn't wait to get home, to get my pajamas on, curl up into a blanket, and just lie there and wake up when it's all over. And
And how old was your second child on
at
this
that point,
particular
she was
occasion?
probably about 6 or 8 months, 6 months maybe. Not even. It wouldn't even have been that.
Did you go back to work after second baby?
I went back to work. I think in the October, so she would have been about 10 months,
10 months. And then
and
how old
then
was she when you found out you were expecting baby number 3?
she was just over a year.
Just over a year. How did you feel about that?
I was devastated.
You were obviously, because you just started to come through at this point, were
I
you? Or
had
you
I had
starting to
just
cope
yeah.
and get back
Come
on track?
October, November time, I was just starting to cope, and me and my husband had talked about it, and I was like, I cannot put myself through that again. So, in the June time, I think it was, when we just found out that I was expecting again, my first phone call was to the GP, and they were well on the ball at that point. You know,
Right.
it was.
So what was the plan then?
I had to see psychiatric services, which was something that I tried to avoid, obviously from.
But,
Yeah,
you know,
and I don't know why, because you know,
it's just fear of judgment, isn't it?
it's just
Especially
yeah,
when you work there,
yeah,
but you
um,
needed it.
yeah,
And that's what
and
those services are for.
it was only for advice. The doctor saw me and was like, "Yeah, you need to take this medication, and you need to take it throughout your pregnancy, and you need to stop at a certain number of days before delivery, and then you need to start it immediately after delivery, and all of this."
And did that help?
Absolutely.
So would you say it was a much more positive experience, baby number 3?
Baby number three
You
was
were prepared.
definitely the best experience out of them all,
Oh, I'm
because
glad to hear that.
I was medicated, you know, and
Supported.
supported, massively supported. And I think I was more
Taking action.
cautious. I was more cautious and more in tune with what I needed to do. My family were a lot tighter with me, um, which was very difficult for me to accept, because I am very much headstrong and very much independent, and nobody tells me what to do.
You
But
know, I've known you, I would say a short period of time, but I know you well
yeah.
enough, and you sharing this with me, I can't imagine
Mm-hmm.
you going through that. But I suppose that's
Yeah.
the whole point of it, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
No one really talks about postnatal depression.
No.
I know personally from having my baby's nearly 10 months old, my youngest, and them asking you the questions, and it's literally a few quick questions. If you answer no, and off they go. But I can imagine a lot of young women maybe not even recognizing
Mm-hmm.
it, and just one survey a few weeks in's not enough.
No. And I mean, I suppose us as even aesthetic practitioners, you get women coming into your clinics all the time, and I've had so many
Like
women.
they're landing in 1 week post having baby.
Yeah, but even the ones, I had a girl recently, and she was maybe 10 months postnatal, and she was saying, I could just feel really isolated, and my friends are all away doing their own thing, and you know it's just really lonely. And I was like, I'm starting to get a bit worried about you,
Yeah.
and I said,
And then I'm sure you're like me, open book.
open book,
And it
yeah,
makes all the difference, doesn't it? It
yeah.
helps validate
Yeah, and I suppose
their
then
feelings.
I told her about different places that I used that I find beneficial, and
What advice would you give to anyone who's watching this today who has experienced postnatal depression and may want another child or is currently pregnant or who is experiencing it now, or a family member who is worried about somebody? What advice would you give?
well, I suppose first of all, it's perinatal, so it's during pregnancy and after. So if you're feeling this way during pregnancy, that's something that is recognised as a mental health difficulty in the perinatal phase. So, contacting your GP, or your community midwife and whoever's doing your checks and stuff, and just saying, look, I'm just not feeling great. I'm just not feeling right.
Yeah.
You don't have to have the words there and then either, because a lot of people think, I just don't know how I feel, you know, but
But
it's
just
just getting it
saying
out,
something,
getting it out.
anything,
Yeah.
asking for support,
Yeah.
that in itself might be enough.
Yeah.
When we bottle things up, it can seem a way
Yeah.
bigger deal than it actually is. And I suppose the other thing about postnatal depression is that you mentioned about feeling isolated, overwhelmed, or, the Groundhog Day, things
Mhm.
being mundane. But even if that's not the case, it can just be a hormonal imbalance.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And you just need that medication to help you through. Might not be forever, might be for longer than you would like. It could be for a very short period of time, but that's what they're there for.
Mhm. And I suppose that was one of the things that I was thinking, "Oh my goodness, I don't wanna start medication and be on medication
Everyone,
forever."
yeah, everyone thinks like that, but that's what it's for.
It's so temporary, and that would be my number one message. And I say it to patients that I come across all the time, friends even that are going through difficult times. This is temporary. That See this phase that you're in and how you're feeling right now, this minute. This is temporary. Whether that be, a good temporary, you know, it's still temporary. The bad temporary is not going to be there forever. But when you're living in it, you can't see that.
It's all consuming.
You need someone, like, so for family members and that, just try and remind them that not every day is going to be like this. You know, there's going to be very slight changes, and it doesn't happen overnight. I didn't wake up one day, great, and then the next day lying in the middle of my kitchen floor thinking of getting a flight out from Dublin and never coming back. This was a gradual thing, and it's not going to go away immediately. It is a very gradual process. Um, it's about having realistic expectations too, that um, it didn't happen overnight. It's not going to go away overnight.
But the first thing to do is to talk to someone
You need to make that
and
step.
seek professional help.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid of being judged.
No,
I think that's a big part of it. Women are afraid of being judged.
I'm not
You
even
see
sure.
themselves as a failure, maybe, as a
Yeah.
mum, especially the first time.
I'm not even sure if it was me feeling of being judged. It was me accepting that I'm the one needs help this time.
Yeah. Because
I,
we do everything for everyone else.
in my family and in my social circle, it was like, I'll go to Orla, go to Orla, go to Orla. And now it's somebody needs to help her. And
So don't be afraid to ask for help.
yeah,
Orla, thank you very much for sharing your experience. And we'll get some links probably posted on this podcast.
yeah,
And yeah, I'm very saddened to hear that you went through all that, but I'm just so glad that you've chose to come on and share that with anyone who might get some help from your experience today.
thank you.
Thank you, honey.